I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. Welcome back to the Midday Muscle. I'm Tyler. It's another day. Let's go. Hey, men's physique fans, your division looks like it's about to get a lot more interesting if what we're seeing from four-time Olympia champ Ramy Buendia holds serve. I think we found ourselves in the same position a lot of Ramy's fans did a few days ago when he posted these update pictures, because for all intents and purposes, this is as close to the knock him down, drag him out, world beater version of Ramy that we've seen in a very long time. And that can't help but make you think that this comeback thing is for real. So if he can keep building on this foundation for the next few months before it's time for him to shift gears by the time we hit Olympia weekend, he could very well be the biggest storyline in this division, and it would set up a huge showdown between him, defending champion Aaron Banks, and three-time champion Brandon Hendrickson, and that could end up being one for the ages. I think it was Edgar Allan Poe who said, "Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear." But when you hear rumors floating around that Big Ramy potentially is sitting out for the rest of the 2023 contest season, at the very least it feels like it needs to be addressed. At some point last week, Ramy was on a podcast and said something to the effect of his plans for 2023 not being solidified yet, before going on to mention the possibility of sitting out for the entire rest of the season and not competing again until 2024. That'd obviously be a huge deal if it happens, because right now it's the expectation for him to attempt to win back his title from Hadi Shupit in November. But at the same time, you gotta take into consideration what happened at the Arnold in last year's Olympia, coupled with the fact that he's been getting stem cell treatment to deal with some nagging injuries. With that in mind, it's not hard to see how something like this has crossed his mind a time or two. Yet in a hypothetical world where he does decide to pack it in for the rest of 2023, you can't help but wonder if that would change the trajectory of his next few years, because history says that odds of him coming back to win after a long layoff aren't necessarily in his favor. Alright, so for a second, let's pretend Ramy does sit out for the season of 2023. And in that instance, it would mean that there's at least one new spot up for grabs in the top for this year's Olympia, which would be a golden opportunity for someone like Wilkin to come in and make a huge splash in his debut. It's April, which still gives him plenty of time to make improvements before he has to shift gears for his prep. And because he'll essentially have had 8 to 10 months of solid training under his belt at that point, you'd imagine he'll continue with the crazy progression that he's shown in the last 2 or 3 times out. We've seen guys benefit from having the wow factor in their first Olympia appearance in recent years, and Brett is someone who definitely feels like he could fit into that mold. So if all the other boxes are checked across the board, he could end up being the beneficiary of a major shakeup. Alright, and since this episode has been living in this hypothetical Ramy-less world, let's continue that theme, and we might as well go ahead and throw another name into the mix here too, because Hassan Mustafa is another guy who could benefit from a few spots opening up inside the top 10. Unlike Brett, Hassan was actually qualified for the Olympia last year before he had to pull out at the last minute due to health issues, which was a real shame because he was in the midst of having the best season of his pro career. Hassan's always had the size, but it was the inconsistency with his conditioning that had been his major bugaboo until he finally pulled it all together last year. So if he could pick up where he left off, maybe he can be the one to carry the mantle for Egypt heading into the fall. And that'll do it for yet another Midday Muscle. I'm Tyler Shore, this is RX Muscle. Thanks for watching.